Ace Combat Infinity is back. After 8 years since the original shutdown date of March 31st, 2018, we can play the best Ace Combat multiplayer experience to date once again. For new fans who never got the chance to play this game, this is the perfect opportunity for you to experience a truly awesome Ace Combat multiplayer experience for the first time. And for veterans of the franchise, this is the perfect chance for you to go back and relive those glory days of sitting near your TV playing on your PlayStation 3. I'm not gonna pretend to know how the people behind Operation Eternal Liberation managed to get this to work, but I'm grateful for what I presume has to be months, if not years, of blood, sweat, and tears put into this revival project. Both the campaign and multiplayer are fully playable. The aircraft tree is here, the ranking system is here, special raids are here, and more. It's the complete package. However, before I start talking about Infinity itself, we gotta address the elephant in the room. How do you get all of this to work in the first place? While this won't be a super in-depth installation tutorial, as people like Igor L have already made comprehensive guides on what you need to install and do, I will outline the general basics of everything. There will be a link in the description to Igor L's tutorial as well. There are two different ways you can go about acquiring Ace Combat Infinity's PKG and RAP files, the former being the game itself, and the latter being the license that tells the game, we're legit, you're good. Method 1 is grabbing both of those through a jailbroken PS3 that has Infinity installed. If you installed Infinity at any point before it was shut down, this is the preferred method. Even if Infinity is uninstalled on your PS3 currently, you can reinstall it and then grab the files from there. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know how you jailbreak a PS3, but I will leave a link in the description for a guide on how you go about doing that. Now, let's say that you never installed Infinity before it shut down. You can't grab it from the PlayStation Store nowadays for obvious reasons, so you've got no way of getting that game onto a PS3. What now? Well, there is another way, but it's going to require a lot of digging and a lot of vigilance on your part. I can't specify what I mean by all of that, otherwise I'd get into trouble, but just know that there is still a way. Once you have both the PKG and RAP files for Infinity, you'll need to grab the Operation Eternal Liberation package. Operation Eternal Liberation, referred to from here on out as OEL, is the launcher you'll need in order to get Infinity's multiplayer working. There's also Aero Server if you want to try that, but I'd personally recommend OEL. OEL lists everything that you'll need. The PS3 firmware that you'll need to install for the build of RPCS3 that's bundled here, you can grab that from the official PlayStation website, the PKG and RAP files for Infinity, and the TSS files, which you can find the link for by joining the Ace Combat Infinity Revival Discord server. If the game isn't on version 2.11 already, you'll also need to install Rusty PSN in order to download all of the patches that Infinity had over the years. With all the patches installed, Infinity should be 7.99 gigabytes. Once Infinity has been set up in RPCS3 and all of these are in the green, there's one last thing you'll need to do. If you haven't done so already, you'll need to create an RPCN account, RPCN being the online component of RPCS3. Not only do you need this account to play Infinity in the first place, given the game's online-only nature, but your save data will also be tied to this account. So if there's a major update to the OEL launcher at some point, your progress will carry over to the new build. Also, make sure you go into controls and set up your controller if you have one. Also, go into the emulator tab and disable the PPU compilation hint so the icon at the bottom left goes away. At long last, if you've done everything correctly, you'll be able to click on Infinity and... Welcome to the best multiplayer experience that Ace Combat has offered yet. Infinity is unlike any other Ace Combat game out there due to its multiplayer focus. Every other Ace Combat game has a single-player focus first and foremost, aside from Joint Assault where it's clear the campaign was designed around co-op above all else. Infinity is also unlike any other Ace Combat game out there due to it being a free-to-play game. Except nowadays, with OEL, the free and free-to-play is bolded, italicized, and underlined for reasons I'll get into in a minute. The game does have an 8-mission single-player campaign that acts as an extended tutorial for how the main multiplayer mode works, but that's in comparison to other Ace Combat games having anywhere from 15 to 52 missions. That being said, don't sleep on Infinity's campaign. It gives some nods to previous Ace Combat games through some of the boss fights you encounter, and the last mission with the remix of Blue Skies is pure cinema. Like I said though, the meat and potatoes of Infinity can be found with its multiplayer offerings. Back in the day, Infinity ran on a mobile game energy bar-esque system where you would have your supplied fuel and your stocked fuel. Your supplied fuel essentially served as 3 games on the house, with it taking 4 hours for 1 fuel slot to come back if memory serves me right. In other words, 12 hours for your 3 games on the house to be refilled. And that's assuming you only used 1 supplied fuel for a sortie. If you used all 3 of your supplied fuel in one go to boost your research progress and credits, that was it. Once you ran out of your supplied fuel, you would then have to use your stocked fuel, which was earned by completing challenges. If you burned through all of your stocked fuel and you didn't have any supplied fuel left, you then either had to wait or pay up. Infinity was criticized for being not even a pay-to-win game, but rather a pay-to-play game due to how restrictive the fuel system was at first. However, as time passed and as people started regularly doing challenges to get stocked fuel, getting stocked fuel from daily login bonuses, etc., the pay-to-play chatter surrounding Infinity did die down. Nowadays, though, you don't have to worry about any of that. Your supplied fuel will always stay at 3 out of 3. You can take 3 supplied fuel into battle for a mission, and when you're done, you'll still have 3 out of 3. This means that you can play for as long as you want. The game still has stocked fuel, but the only time you'll really ever want to use those is during the weekends when you're able to take 6 fuel into battle with you to really go ham on the aircraft tree. Speaking of the aircraft tree, it's huge! There is a lot for you to unlock here, especially considering each aircraft can be leveled up to level 20. Add on the special aircraft and special weapon trees, and you've got a lot to go after. However, this is where I have to bring up something that to some people is a good thing, and to others it's a bad thing. You can almost entirely skip the grind if you want. In the OEL launcher, if you go to the Saves tab, you'll be able to directly modify in-game values such as credits, research reports, special supply tickets, etc. You type in whatever value you want, you click on Write to Files, boot up Infinity, and you're all set. To some, this evens out the playing field. You still need to level up organically to unlock more paths in the aircraft tree, hence why I said you can almost entirely skip the grind if you want. But it's not like you're going to be stuck with the default level 1 F4E and level 1 HPAAs. And this also means you don't gotta treat Infinity like it's a second job if you want to keep up with other people. To others though, this entirely ruins the in-depth progression system, and I can see where those people are coming from. At first, I played the game as normal without any save editing. It was fun to organically progress through the aircraft tree, seeing the research bars fill up and spending credits to obtain higher levels, spending my couple hundred special supply tickets wisely on a special plane and having that be my go-to loadout while making progress towards aircraft and parts. It was fun to relive the glory days of naturally progressing through the game as the devs intended. But after a while, I did start using the save editor. After having thought about it for a bit, I'm actually really glad the people behind OEL are allowing us to directly modify the in-game values like this. How come? With Infinity being a free-to-play game, microtransactions were the main source of revenue. Things like research reports, fuel, special supply tickets, and more. Because this is a revival project, meaning no connectivity to the PlayStation Store is possible, if we had to play the game as normal without the ability to pay to boost our progress, that would be hell. The fact microtransactions aren't even a viable option in this revival means that, without save editing, entire chunks of content would either be unavailable for absurd amounts of time or locked away for good. So while I understand why some people are a little upset that you can just go to the Saves tab and mash the shit out of the 9 key on your keyboard, I think this is a good thing. I feel like after a certain point, the nostalgia of progressing through the trees would wear off and the tedium of the grind would start to seep in. Moving on to taking a deeper look at Infinity's multiplayer, by far the most popular mode is online co-op. You got 2 teams, Alpha and Bravo. Both teams are ultimately fighting for the same thing, to eliminate all enemies and obtain that sweet, delicious S rank. However, there's also a bit of competition, as whichever team has the highest score at the end of the match will get a bonus to their credits and research progress. Though, given how you can directly edit how many credits and research reports you have at any given moment, nowadays it doesn't really matter whether you and your team get the higher score or not. Whichever player has the highest score among the winning team will be deemed the MVP. I gotta admit, it does feel really nice to see your plane fly across the screen, and then your emblem, nickname, and username shows up, all while the music associated with your emblem of choice for your loadout plays in the background. It's so cool.
Alpha team produced some serious numbers. Better start thinking about how you'll use that reward.
Speaking of loadouts, in Ace Combat Infinity, you can have up to 40 of them at any given moment. You pick your plane and special weapon, choose the level you want for both of those. There's a reason you can intentionally pick a lower level that I'll explain in a minute, and then you get to equip parts. I'll tell you this right now, the number one thing above all else that you should focus on first when equipping parts is your standard missile tracking. The better your standard missile tracking is, the better your odds are at hitting targets that are at more extreme angles of attack, and the better your missiles will be in general. The standard missile tracking without any upgrades equipped is ass. After your missiles are upgraded though, it's entirely up to you on how you want to fill the rest of your part slots. On top of ranking up a specific plane, you can unlock even more parts for it by using it over and over again in battles. Each plane caps out at 42 part slots, meaning you can turn even the most useless and weak plane into a monstrous beast. On top of the co-op PvE modes, Infinity also has a few PvP modes. Team Deathmatch, where 2 teams fight it out in an air-to-air battle, Naval Fleet Assault, where 2 teams are tasked with destroying the other's fleet while protecting their own, and Ring Battle, where 2 teams compete to get the highest score by flying through rings. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record any of the PvP stuff, but honestly, I'm not complaining. I prefer PvE stuff if it's available over PvP anyway. Less stressful and more chill, you know? Speaking of things being chill, if you want a break from flying 2,000 plus cost superplanes, try some 1,500 cost limit lobbies. Each loadout has a cost value. The higher the cost value is, the better that plane's performance is rated. By capping the limit at 1,500, yeah, the planes won't be as powerful, but if you're in a 1,500 limit lobby, that's intentional. That's why you're able to lower the level of your planes and special weapons, so that you can lower the performance to build such a loadout. Moving on, special raid missions are here as well. Every once in a while, you'll get a big flashing red alert saying sortie order. If you see this screen, your next mission will be up against one of the various super weapons that have appeared throughout Ace Combat. Moby Dick Pursuit, aka the Aigayon and her fleet, Excalibur Onslaught, Satellite Interception, aka the Solg, and Stonehenge Returns. Each of these special raids have 4 variants, 1 through 4, white for 1, red for 2, gold for 3, and black for 4. The higher the number, the more difficult that mission will be due to increased armaments and enemies. For example, Moby Dick Pursuit 1 has you facing the Aigayon and her fleet that have standard weaponry and escort fighters, whereas with Moby Dick Pursuit 4, on top of the conventional weaponry and escorts, there's laser weaponry and the Butterfly Master comes in. There's also emergency air, ground, and sea strike missions that have you going up against a massive aerial, ground, or naval force. There was also a pilot aptitude test that could show up during tournaments that asked you to participate in a special ring battle. However, given that Infinity's tournaments won't be coming back, I think it's safe to say that this particular special raid is fully dead. Also, you want to know why people spam delay the final attack during special raids? If you don't wipe out every single enemy before destroying the final priority target, you'll get blue-balled with an A rank. So please, don't be that pilot who destroys the final target early. Unfortunately though, it's not all sunshine and rainbows with Infinity. The crashing issues that happened when the first iteration of OEL was released have been fixed by now, as I haven't gotten a single crash ever since installing OEL version 1.0.2.2. But the game does show its age when things like host disconnects happen. Although Infinity utilized servers to keep its core functionality online, the matchmaking was all peer-to-peer. On top of that, no host migration of any kind was ever implemented into Infinity. So if the host's internet goes out in the middle of a game, tough luck. Everyone disconnects from that lobby. If you're sitting in a lobby and the host needs to go do something or they're done for the night, when they leave, everyone gets kicked back to the main menu. Did the lobby get yet another Moby Dick special raid, but the host is so burnt out on Moby Dick that they leave the room? That piece of selfish prick just ruined everyone else's day. This hasn't happened to me personally, but I have seen an instance in the Infinity Revival Discord where the host killed an entire lobby just because they didn't feel like doing that special raid. The fact there isn't any kind of host migration in this game is really annoying. What makes it even worse is that if you're in the middle of a game and you DC, be it the host disconnecting or your own internet having issues, the game will issue you a penalty for leaving the game early. Even if it wasn't your fault at all, the game will be like, "F you for leaving the game early, have a penalty." Thankfully, you can reset your penalty rank within the OEL launcher, but that little extra insult to injury is like, come on, man. As much as I just complained about the peer-to-peer bullshit, that's not the number one thing that pisses me off here. The number one thing that pisses me off here isn't even Infinity's fault. It's the people. There have been confirmed cases of people cheating. One instance of someone equipping parts that are above the plane's part cap limit for each category, and some instances of people intentionally doing some frame rate fuckery to get crazy fast speed and maneuverability that's above normal levels. To those people, I have to ask, why? Why do you feel the need to cheat in a community-led revival of Ace Combat Infinity? Better yet, why do you feel the need to cheat in a video game to begin with? Some people are just so pathetic, man. Thankfully, there's only been a couple confirmed cases of this happening. It's not an epidemic. The fact any kind of cheating is going on to begin with, though, is disheartening. Don't let this deter you from booting up the game, though. I've never run into anyone with the plane part cap limit hack, at least I think, and I've only ever run into someone using the 60 FPS insane speed / maneuverability hack twice in my entire playtime with Infinity so far. Even then, with the 60 FPS thing, it could be a case of people genuinely not knowing that going above 30 FPS can mess with the game's physics. But you know what? Despite the peer-to-peer issues and despite some people being the absolute worst, Ace Combat Infinity has been an absolute blast to experience again. Like I said earlier, this is the best multiplayer experience the franchise currently has. Will Ace Combat Online, the multiplayer component of Ace Combat 8, be able to match or perhaps even be better than Infinity? We'll have to wait and see. Although, I will admit, I am side-eyeing the Battle Pass system they've got going on. Yeah, that probably means Ace Combat 8's multiplayer will have a lot of content, perhaps even as much content as Infinity, but the fact this game is following the live service trend does worry me a little. Anyway, I strongly recommend that you give Infinity a shot. Yeah, you do gotta put in a little bit of elbow grease to get everything set up, but trust me, it's worth it. Hope to see you in the skies.